First, the recap is it's a huge win for us to beat an experienced team like that. The way they've been playing, especially coming off their road win against Minnesota, and with the experience that they have and the firepower offensively and the abilities they have defensively, and especially after a somewhat of a slow start, to have the response that we had and to continue to get better during the game, which I thought was really, really important inside of it. And that's kind of where we're at. We're going to make some youthful, inexperienced mistakes. We've got some guys that have got to continue to learn to understand the consistency that's needed, and most importantly, when they bring the effort and they bring the intelligence and they bring the hard-nosed play, then we've got a chance to get consistent. And you know, shooting can make up for a multitude of mistakes. Well, so can just playing hard and competing. And that's what we have to understand. Sometimes it sounds more simple than it is, but really that's what it has to be. And as we get ready for tomorrow night, again, we're playing with a team that they never stop coming. I mean, and we learned that certainly last year and here, but past teams at Boston U, his background before that at Villanova, and before that, and after that, certainly being at Penn State, with what he's done, they always keep coming at you. They play physical, they play aggressive, they give tremendous ball pressure that's backed up by excellent help. He always has a very good mix of size, you know, where they're smaller in some areas than they're bigger in others, and they put matchup issues on the court constantly. And they're moving the ball at a very good rate. Certainly DJ Newbill is playing at an extremely high rate, and he's been building to that for some time. There's no doubt about that. You've had to guard him since the day he got in the league, and he's just adding more to his game. But they bring confidence. He's recruiting very well, and now he's got some experienced guys that know what he wants done. And it's going to be a very, very tough battle, because they challenge you mentally and physically not to make mistakes. And they're like everybody else. If you make them, they can capitalize on them. And our situation is we've just got to continue to get better inside of the games. And keep learning that it's not going to be a perfect game. There's going to be times the shots aren't going. There's going to be time fouls are called. There's going to be time mistakes come, but you have to be able to overcome them. And the fact that we've had a couple of very close wins for us right now, of our 2 wins, I think will only come back to help us. Certainly you'd like to have them be a little bit more of a margin of victory inside of the game. But when you get back and you look at it and you find how you win, especially with Nebraska and Ohio State, I think those are very, very helpful to us. So it's 2 teams both sitting here at 12-4, and overall, and with a mutual respect for one another. And we'll be excited to have our students back, and hopefully have a great crowd. And certainly we're happy to be able to turn right back around and play after not playing for almost 3 weeks at home until this past Saturday. So go ahead.
I guess as you did review that film, you talked about the slow start. I know you talked to Denise Lansing about being disappointed with some of the more intangibles, leadership and communication and those kinds of things. I mean, what was the trigger, I guess, for turning it around against Ohio State that maybe wasn't there in East Lansing?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think we got good bench play when we went to the bench, and I think the guys that we took out of the game early came back and responded quickly. And I think that's the key, because it wasn't like we shot it a lot better. Certainly Nick's threes were crucial, but again, it's all about momentum, and somebody's got to capture it, and it doesn't matter if it's a starter or somebody coming off the bench. And I thought Colin did an excellent job of that. I thought that Nick did a very good job of that. Stan came in and gave us solid time. When James and Troy went back in the game, their play picked up significantly, and I think those are the keys. I think when you're capable of shooting the ball, when you're capable of scoring points, and it doesn't happen like you drew it up, or it doesn't happen like you'd hoped it did, you have to understand that when you go in with a mindset of hustle, of defense, of rebounding, of next pass, of getting back on defense, those are the things that you can control. And I think our guys did a good job of that during the game, and that was key for us.
You've always talked about how it's not as important who starts as who finishes. Is it a situation maybe that with the energy that Emmett and Colin have played with of putting one of those guys in the starting lineup? I'm
not really thinking about the starting lineup, Ken, in that sense. I mean, the starting lineup is always subject to change. Okay, it's not a given on any given night. I made a decision to start somebody 30 minutes before the game the other day. That's just the way that it is. You know, I don't make decisions based on the starting lineup, based on any type of bandwagon situation. And my job is to keep making sure that they're getting better constantly. And If I change the starting lineup, you'll see it when it's announced, but I really don't put a lot of extra time into that.
I was going to say, just the energy they bring to maybe avoid a slow start this time.
I don't know if that's the case, okay? I mean, we've got guys that are capable in that starting lineup of providing energy, all right? Hunter Perea, in the second half of the Nebraska game, we don't win that game without him, right? Okay, he got in some foul trouble. Hunter's situation has been in foul trouble, and that's what it's been more than anything else. Getting the first, and he quickly gets that second. But there's always moving parts in the game. I mean, and that's not going to change. That's been there since the beginning of the game. It's not a static game. It's not the only thing that's constant is there's going to be change in the game. Other than that, it is what it is. So we'll just see how it goes.
Has he responded, I guess, the same way that you talked about?
Who's he?
Hunter, the way you need to. You did talk at Michigan State about him needing to respond and to keep that spot in the lineup. Have you seen that? I know you said he didn't necessarily play poorly against Ohio State. It was the foul trouble.
Yeah, he's been fine. He's been getting better all year long. That's the key for him. He just continues to remain. The biggest thing for him is if he brings the consistency of how he practices to every game, we'll never have a conversation about that. But, you know, he's young in certain respects as a player. You know, he's not young maybe age-wise, but he's young in the respects of how much he's doing on the court for us. So it takes some time to get to that point. But when he doesn't play with the energy level, or doesn't play with the awareness level, or doesn't play with the rebounding mindset, then that's another story. You know, when those things are there and other things come up, you know, then we just have to deal with that. But we'll keep pushing him to get better every day like we do the rest of them.
Tom, I'm sorry.
Good, Pete.
Go ahead.
Your offensive rebounding in the first half, I mean, a lot of that's effort, but it seemed like your ball rotation and having them scrambling really created a lot of those opportunities because guys were out of position. How much of that ball movement will help you guys offensive rebounding and just kind of creating opportunities for
Well, that's a big part of it, but the even bigger part of it is the consistency of purpose, I guess is the best way to say it, of getting to the glass. James has to do that. Nick has to do that. Colin Hartman didn't go to the glass this past Monday night like he did this past Saturday. Troy has to be there constantly. You know, that's the energy level that you want. In the case of Hunter, he needs to be as active on the offensive glass as he is the defensive glass and rebound out of his area. You know, not allow people to block him out and use his quickness and react quick. You know, those type of things are what we're looking at. But the ball movement, we're not going to be successful if we don't move the ball. So everything else falls in line with that. Well, to move the ball, you've got to get great cuts, which move the defense. You've got to get good screening. You know, the defense decides who they're going to guard, who they're not going to guard, how they're going to react to a ball screen, how they're going to react to a pin down, those type of things. You just got to keep making sure you're making them react. And if the ball starts to slow down, or the ball starts to be dribbled rather than driven or passed, if you're not screening and you're exchanging bodies, or you're whiffing, or you know, sometimes we slip a screen, but that's a call. You know, that's not a predetermined decision unless there's something they see in the game. But ball movement, body movement for us are crucial because we've got to get rebounds from a lot of different people. But it's an attitude more than it is anything else. And we spent a lot of time last week on that attitude, especially with the guards.
Pete? Yeah, Tom, I quasi-joke with the players, when you come off the bench in order to be productive, do you prefer them run up and down the court a little bit to get warmed up, or especially from a shooting standpoint? You know, if a guy's open 5 seconds in the game, somebody like Nick, do you want him to take it, or would you prefer him warm up?
Well, I think it goes both ways. You know, it's like this. You're going to shoot it first time you touch it, it probably better go in, to be honest with you, because you do need to get a feel for the game. You do need to let it you move and get the blood flowing a little bit. And now you got a wide open layup or dunk, that's another story. But at the same time, you don't want to take confidence. It's more, that becomes, let's go in and get solidified. Sometimes when a guy comes right in and shoots the ball, maybe his mindset wasn't about what he needed to do to get ready for the game, which is come in and be talking on defense, be moving without the ball, be rebounding the ball. Now if it goes in, you might have a guy that's going to get hot for the next 3-4 minutes. But the bottom line is there's a flow to it. Come in and add to the flow. It's just like come in and impact the game. Don't come in and take away from what we're doing. Because again, the plus minus, at the end of the day, that becomes a huge statistic, right? Maybe somewhat individually, but more for the combinations. You know, we've got certain combinations that are really good, some that maybe aren't as good, so then you have to look at the reasons, when you look at the game. So it's not just the numbers, okay, what's the reason? But bottom line is, you should probably get in the flow, get your blood pumping a little bit, have a bead of sweat before you take your first three.
Mike Miller?
With Stan, you talked the other day just about how hard he's working. Have you seen him, has he been able to keep his head up and maybe buy into his role the way guys like Colin and Nick have?
Sure, I think so. I mean, he's out there doing a good job. So, absolutely. And I think that's the key, because that's where it's going to be. I mean, everybody is, this is a team that's got the potential to get deep. And deep, again, not just body deep, but consistency deep. And part of that consistency is understanding what you bring to the table every day. And then if more things come, well, it's because you're the beneficiary of your teammates or the beneficiary of how well you played the way you needed to play. And Stan brings a lot of value to the table. And he can move the ball, he can defend, he can rebound the ball, he can certainly get to the rim and get fouled. And that's the key. The key is to come in and make simple plays, not try to make home run plays that turn into turnovers. And get a feel for how he's being played, because he's being played differently by certain teams, and just adjust to that. And so we're constantly working to make sure that there's a really good plan for when he's in the game. But the bottom line with him is that he takes care of what he can take care of, and he's starting to do more and more of that in practice. And hopefully, when you defend the way that they did the other day, hopefully they start to see there's a lot of value to that. There's a lot of value in minutes and productivity, but there's a lot of value in your confidence when you're really locked into what you're trying to take away from people against great teams like Ohio State. So to me, that's crucial that they continue to understand that. And it's going to be the same thing tomorrow night, because there's a lot of guys on that court that can really, really score. Not just Newville, but they can score. Whether they can shoot or whether they can drive it, whether they can post it, they can score. So you've got to be able to do something about that. And at the same time, you got one of the leading scorers in the country in the game in DJ Newville. So you have to be aware of where he's at all times. So when that maturity comes to understanding your role, especially for what's needed of you of impacting the game from an energy and a toughness and a defense and rebounding standpoint and a ball movement mindset, he's been good.
Time for one more question.
Initial reaction to them not having John Johnson?
Yeah, I don't really have one. They're a really good team with or without him in my mind. And he can certainly score the ball, but they've got other guys that can score it. And I think my first reaction would be that those have a tendency to really rally teams. I have no idea what happened, but those have a real ability to get an even tighter circle, especially when you go on the road. And Pat is pretty good at having a pretty good mindset when they go on the road anyways. So my guess with this is probably only going to add to it and a benefit for them. So we've got to be that much more on cue with what we're trying to do.
I guess.
Go ahead.
One, I asked the players this too. Last couple 3 years, they've always had kind of two high-scoring guys in that backcourt, whether it's Frazier and Newbill or different guys. Now that it's just Newbill, do they do anything particularly different with him, because there's not necessarily that sort of, I guess, two-pronged attack, if you will?
Well, I don't think it's like Brandon Taylor's continue to get better. If you look at their numbers, they've got guys that are very, very comfortable on the perimeter. Shep Gardner's come in and done a very good job. Gino Thorpe has played well. No question, John Johnson is a high-level offensive player for them. But when you've got Ross Travis that can keep the ball alive, that can drive the ball, that can create contact, that can get to the offensive glass. When you have Taylor, they went right to Taylor last year in the gym here and put him right in the post. He can score in the post. He can score from three. You can't get caught up in percentages. You got to get caught up in abilities. And I think they've got guys that have a lot of different abilities. And so the moment you think you're going to back off on somebody is when that person starts burning it. Inside of the game, you might take some chances, but your game plan has got to be, we've got to understand all of them. So DJ Newbill is a tremendous scorer because he can score at the rim, he can get fouled, he's taken 100 more shots than anybody on his team, he can get the pull-up, he can score from three, he can go right and left, he's good in transition, he's good at the clock, and he really elevates, and that's one thing that he's really added to his game. He elevates over people, and so you've got to do a great job of preventative management with a guy like that. You've got to be very aware of him long before he gets the ball, and then you've got to have a plan for when he gets it. And it's never just one guy guarding, and especially with the things we do multiply and the way we switch and things of that nature, it becomes a team situation. Pete, go ahead.
No, A lot of teams, you get into Big Ten play, you start shortening the rotation. In an ideal world with this team that you have, I don't want to say you're going to lengthen the rotation, but can you sustain the rotation because you're getting now some contributions off the bench?
Oh, I hope so. That'd be the plan. There's no doubt about that. We're not looking to shorten it. Some of it becomes situational in the game. And the other day became a little bit matchup oriented, and it became how guys were playing. And you're trying to steal rest for your key guys at certain times. You know, where you know if you get this guy back in and we get this guy a minute and a half, he'll be ready for the stretch runner. Getting this guy through the TV timeout, you know, we only need to, you got to plan ahead constantly in the game, right? When you really do, you're not just planning for that first TV timeout. You're looking at it, so okay, I'm probably going to have to get him again. And so that's already going through in your head because you know that going in. So you're always trying to steal moments. But the bottom line becomes this: sometimes it's just based on feel, and sometimes it's based on who's playing well. And that's a little bit of what happened the other day. And then you just got to read it, because the worst thing you can make a mistake of as a coach is being in the last play. Okay, all right, just being in the only play, or being in that play that you're in right now. You got to move right on. All right, and if you're really doing a good job, you know, when you've got a break in the action with your staff, you're planning ahead for down the road. You're looking at, okay, who do we got to get out because this is coming down to this or this is coming down to that. And who are we going to need to be fresh at the end of the game for foul shooting or for press offense or things of that nature. So all that being said, the more guys that you can play that can come in and impact the game in a positive way, well, the less of those decisions you have to make and be concerned about. Then it becomes a little bit more of a flow game. But again, you know, all bets are off when somebody's really playing well, you know, or hence when it's not somebody's really struggling, and then fouls certainly play into that too. But we want to keep bringing a lot of energy to the game, and I think our guys off the bench can do that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.